All right, let's talk about the self parameter in Python. This is going to be our today's topic of our video. So let's save this file first. So I'll call it the self parameter, the self parameter dot py and save. So we did a bit of code in our last class, in our last video where we discussed about the class, where we discussed about the init method. So let's do this code again. Class person, define init and self name age. This was the code we did, and then we call self dot name is equal to name and self dot age equal to age. And let's define create self and print hello, my name is and we're gonna name it self dot name. So p1 equal to p1 is an object we already know, and we're gonna name it as and 20, and we're gonna call our function. That's it. So over here we are discussing about self parameter. So what exactly self parameter is? So the self parameter is a reference to the current instance of the class. So it is used to access properties and method used for accessing properties and methods that belong to the class. So if we see it over here in this code, what we are doing is we are accessing all of this over here, right? So this is where the self parameter is used. So one thing you must know about the self parameter is that the self parameter must be the first parameter of any method in the class. All right. So now let's talk about why use self. So Python, if you don't use self in it, Python would not know which objects properties you want to access. So basically the self parameter links the method to the specific object. All right, so let's take this example like class person define init self name, self dot name equals name, and define print name self again, and now we're gonna say print self dot name. All right, and that, let's say object person, and I'm gonna call it Irum, and object person, I'm gonna call it, let's say XYZ. And we're gonna simply print it as p1 dot print name. I'll call these functions p2 dot print name, and I'll call it. That's it. This is what self parameter is all about. So one thing you need to know is self does not have to be named self. All right. So you didn't necessarily have to name it as self. You can name it anything else. you can write ABC or my object as the first, but it has to be the first parameter of any method or any function in the class. So let's say class person, and you say you are defining a method or function in it. And now you can write it as my object, self, or ABC, whatever you want to name it. Like let's say my OBJ, object, name, age. Again, like you don't necessarily have to name it as self, but it must be the first object nonetheless. Nonetheless. All right. So this is how it would work as. So yeah, define. Now if you call it ABC, you're gonna pass it a parameter inside it. All right. It's up to you. Whatever parameter you pass inside instead of the self. So hello, my name is, and now abc dot name and p1 and now person, and here it is. Like this. So while you can use a different name, it is strongly recommended to use self as it is the convention in Python and makes your code more readable to others. So yeah, this is so basically you can use any property of the class using self. So let's say access multiple properties using self. Let's do that. So let's say we create a class car and we define a function inside it, self and brand, model, year, self dot brand, brand self dot model, model self dot year, year, define display info, self, and print f. So self dot so self dot year and self dot brand and oh sorry, I took the wrong brackets. It should be like this because we are passing it as parameters, and self dot model, and that's it. Now if you pass it down, like let's say car1 equals car and Toyota, you can say Corolla, and now let's say it was in the year 2015. And now car1 dot display info, and that's it. So now you see we have called multiple properties using self inside the function. So you can also call other methods within the class using self. So calling methods with self, you can also call other methods within the class using self. So let's say call one method from another method using self. Let's say we have class person, define init, self name, self dot name equal to name, Fine. Read self return hello self dot name define welcome self and now say message equal to self dot read and now print message plus and say welcome to our website. So now what we did is we called one method from another method, v1 person, and now this and v1 dot welcome. So it will call two functions, and now it will give me the output like this. Hello, welcome to our website. Perfect. So this is what the self parameter is all about. In Python, we'll discuss more of other object-oriented concepts in our upcoming videos. See you in the next video.